If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. But also, it could be vaguely scientific. I am a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma. I am Derek. There's a speck on the flea, on the tail, on the frog, on the bump, on the log, in the hole, in the bottom of Jim, the scientist. Hi, Jim.
Oh, no, it's fine. I got stitches.
Oh, okay, good. That's cleared up then. And our guest this week is either 3 possums in an overcoat or it's Sydney. Welcome back, Sydney.
Hey, I'm definitely 3 possums in an overcoat.
Nice.
Maybe 4 because I'm kind of tall.
Maybe 4. Oh, that's good. So this is a show where listeners send in questions to hear our vaguely scientific answers, and who knows, we might even get some of those answers right. But first, it's time for Jim's fun science fact of the day. Jim?
Okay. The Zanclean flood is an event that was theorized to have filled the Mediterranean Sea roughly 5.3 million years ago. Prior to this, access between the Atlantic and Mediterranean had been cut off at the Strait of Gibraltar. If this flood event is responsible for the formation of the modern Mediterranean, then it would have been a catastrophic flood and would have filled the whole basin in a couple months to a couple years.
So you say it was theorized to have done this. Do we have like geological evidence for this?
Yeah. It's a lot of the unanswered questions are more of the lines of like how empty was the Mediterranean?
Oh.
There's some theories that was like, it's about maybe like half as full as it was, so it wasn't like, filling it from nothing. There are some theories where it's like it's filling from nothing. So the degree to which a bad thing would have happened, I mean, it's going to be bad no matter what, but the degree to which the flooding would have been either hyper catastrophic or just the regular amount of catastrophic is up in the air, I think.
What does Zanclean mean?
I don't know. I didn't look into that specific thing. It must be like either a time period or like a location.
It's the lowest stage or earliest age on the geological time scale of the Pliocene.
Oh, okay.
So that's another word I don't know. But anyway.
The Pliocene, I think, it's either the geologic time period. No, because that would have been like 5 million years ago. I know the Pleistocene.
Well, so it's a time period.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with the fun science fact out of the way for today, we should probably move on to our first question this week. And question 1 comes to us from Daniel. What are the advantages and disadvantages to having all thumbs as fingers? A side note, being all thumbs is considered clumsy, but your thumb is your strongest, most nimble finger. Interesting thought there.
One of the things that I think is interesting about the thumb is that the thumb only has the 2 joints, whereas like all your other fingers have 3. So that's already like a mark against it right there.
That's true. The first thing that I thought of, because the addendum here, your thumb is your strongest, most nimble finger. Well, it is the strongest finger,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know that I would agree with nimble.
I was thinking that too. I'm looking at my thumb right now and I'm just wiggling it in all the directions. And and a lot of the thumb's mobility actually comes from like the crease in your palm. So like if you want to stretch your thumb all the way across to like touch your pinky, it's not the thumb doing that. It's like the whole hand is folding in half. So the thumb by itself, I feel like, is not as nimble as like in the context of the rest of your hand, your thumb can be nimble, but I feel like just on its own, like in a vacuum, if you only had thumbs, I think it would be a little bit tricky.
When you said in a vacuum, my mind immediately imagined the inside of a vacuum with a bunch of like floating thumbs in it, which was not the image that you were going for.
Yeah.
No, but
on the idea of just like individual thumbs, it makes me think of the Spy Kids movie.
Oh,
you guys watch
oh.
those when you were younger?
I
a
did
long
not,
time
but I
ago.
know of them.
Oh, okay. Well, they have like, and I don't remember why, but they have like these thumbs that like just like by themselves, just like move around, and it's like
Oh
I
yeah.
think they're like the bad guys, like minions or something.
Huh.
So like the henchmen, right?
Yeah, something like that. But I think they're pretty clumsy, like you're saying, Jim. Like they're just thumbs by themselves, can't really do much. It's the nature of like the thumb with the rest of the hand that makes it useful.
Yeah, yeah.
Do they have hands?
No, I
Like-
think they're just thumbs. Now I got to look it up because I can't quite remember. But I think they're just like walking. Yeah, they're. Oh no, they okay. There, it's like a thumb with like thumb arms and thumb feet. Okay, so it does look a little different than I remember.
Huh.
So it is all thumbs. That's
Yeah,
okay. Darn you, Robert Rodriguez.
they're called the thumbs.
What? Oh, I gotta go watch those movies, I guess.
The thing that's interesting that I was just noticing about my thumb is that I think my thumb may very slightly pop out of its socket when I bend it like inward.
Ah,
Because I can make like a 90-degree angle with my thumb, and apparently most people can't do that.
I don't think that's an every person thing. So one of the things that makes the thumb, like the human thumb, special,
As
I
opposed to
guess,
the cat thumb.
as opposed to the cat thumb, is that it's opposable.
Right.
That was good.
Oh.
So for the longest time, and I don't think this was really a matter of genuinely not understanding, but it was a matter of I've never actually put any amount of thought into this before. But the word opposable doesn't mean posable. It means that it opposes the rest of the fingers.
Right.
And so my next follow-up question is, if you are all thumbs, if your hand is all thumbs, are they all opposable thumbs? And in which case, do they all oppose each other, or do they not oppose anything?
So are you thinking that your hand might be like more of a spider, like how the spider can curl its legs in and
Well, I'm kind of thinking if they just basically replace the fingers, they're still, the one thumb is still opposable, but the rest of them aren't. And in that scenario, you just have shorter, stubbier fingers.
yeah.
Which
yeah.
I would say does make sense for you to be less dexterous.
That's true. Yeah, I was noticing that my thumb is just about the same length as my pinky, maybe like 3 or 4 millimeters shorter. It's really hard to measure fingers, I noticed.
You got to figure out where you start measuring from.
Yeah, and depending on if you're looking at the front or back of your hand, that changes.
Now I'm measuring my hand.
Yeah, I think we're all doing that now.
Yeah.
So is the listener. Don't lie.
No, I think my thumb and pinky are the same. I think they're
Interesting.
just over 2 inches. At least how I'm currently measuring. But yeah, no, I mean, so what makes it opposable? Is it the fact that it can like do that cross palm thing that we were talking about? Is that like the difference between opposable?
So essentially it means that you can touch the tip of each of your fingers to the tip of your thumb, which means they are in opposing directions.
Oh, gotcha,
So it's
gotcha.
so if you had like an additional thumb, it would have to determine whether it opposes the other thumb or it opposes the finger. So it's essentially you have two sides of your hand, I guess. And like which direction, like they're directionally specific.
I see.
And that allows us to like grip things and maneuver things with our fingers that animals that don't have opposable thumbs can't do.
Like cats.
Yeah.
Like cats.
Yeah, so like if a cat had where they have like the, I don't know what it's called, but it's like it looks like a hanging extra foot pad thing.
Yeah.
If they just had a bunch of those, they would not be as nimble. But if we had a bunch of those, but still one opposable thumb, I'm not sure how much clumsier you would be.
Yeah. I mean, like I think there are other ways to picture it, because another way you could think if they were all like structured the same way your thumb is, as opposed to being fingers, then you would still have just a bunch of phalanges going up in the wrong direction.
Right.
So the scenario of just replacing each of your fingers with 2 boned phalanges instead of 3 boned phalanges is like, I don't think you would be that clumsy, but there would be a significant drop in dexterity.
Yeah.
It would make playing musical instruments really hard, so I'm not a fan.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I'm not even sure how well you'd be able to grip like a guitar neck because they would be so much shorter.
Oh, the thumbs, not the guitar neck.
No. Yeah.
I don't know why it.
You'd have to play a ukulele because that's a nice short guitar.
That's an.
The other thing I was thinking of is the fact that, at least in my case, I don't know if this is universally true because I've never really stopped to look at other people's hands all that much, but like my thumbs are wider than my fingers by a small amount. Like they are a wider surface than like the pointer and the middle fingers and whatnot. So, I mean, I feel like that's going to cause some problems, at least until you're used to the way that it feels on your hands.
I think that's kind of what I was thinking about when I mentioned like the nimbleness of, because like having opposable thumbs does help with a lot of stuff, but like the fingers, they have their own abilities, right? So like it's not just thumbs. It's not, the thumb is not our sole superpower.
Yeah.
As a species.
But it does allow us to give a thumbs up.
It does. We are one of the few creatures on Earth that get thumbs up.
Yeah. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting is just the fact that, like, there are so many science fiction aliens where they have, like, instead of a thumb and 4 fingers, they will have maybe, like, 3 and 3 fingers that are, like, opposable. Or, like, you could say, like, 3 fingers and 3 thumbs that, like, close. I guess that would be more akin to like a lobster claw or like spider, curling up. But I find that interesting because it's such a different design, but it's still sort of like familiar. You know what I mean?
I do. Sorry, I meant to say yes. Another thing that I had made note of that I kind of decided not to mention, but I now want to mention it because I want to point out why I took it off my list.
Okay.
Because I had originally thought it would make, I guess I did kind of say, it would make using a lot of tools difficult. So like it would make playing musical instruments, is what I said, difficult. But I kind of reevaluated that based on the idea that we specifically designed most of our tools to function with the hands that we had. So I think rather than just making it so that we wouldn't be able to use a lot of tools, I think it would just fairly significantly change how we designed things.
If we all had all thumbs from
if like humans, that was just what a human hand looked like.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But if you were just like a singular human who had all thumbs, in the world of humans with hands now, like it would still pose a difficulty because the world wouldn't be built for you.
Right.
Fair. I'm seeing far more disadvantages.
Yeah, and I mean that's not only sort of what the question asker had suspected, but it's also, when we say all thumbs, it's a bad thing. It's disadvantages.
Although I did read on one particular random person on the internet's hypothesis that because most people now text with their thumbs, and if you text really fast, someone might say, wow, you're all thumbs, meaning like you're a real fast texter, and that this potentially negative phrase could become a positive phrase in a new context.
Interesting.
I don't know if this was in a movie or in like a cartoon or something, but I've definitely seen the joke done where like a kid plays a lot of video games. And so the joke is that their thumb is super strong and they can like punch through walls with it.
With a singular thumb.
Just the thumb. Like everything else is frail and weak.
They'd be very good at thumb wrestling.
Right.
Oh, can you imagine how different thumb wrestling would be if you were only thumbs and you had to like subdue 5 thumbs on your opponent's hands?
Oh man. Or maybe you pick a thumb. So like which of your thumbs is the best thumb? Like thumb 1 or thumb 2, and then you have to like rival that.
Yeah. There's different thumb classes.
There's like a Thumb Wars meta.
Well, and they would be like different names. Like we couldn't just call them all thumbs. Like think about our fingers. Like we have different names for our
That's true.
fingers. So we'd have to have like thumb and like first thumb and like they would have different names.
Well, we'd probably call the middle one the middle thumb, and we'd call the one that you use for pointing, we'd call that the pointer thumb. And then there's
But
there's
if it's
two
a
more.
thumb, are we still really pointing with it? Because it doesn't quite go in the same direction. Like maybe we now point with our entire hand because it's awkward to like point with these stubby little.
Oh,
I don't know.
There's always like the person who like sticks their thumb at somebody is like, get a load of this guy, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, it would drastically change what hitchhiking is like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Just wave is what you do.
You just wave and a bunch of cars pull over.
Yeah, 5 of them, in fact.
5 cars immediately, because that's how hitchhiking works.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting to think about how, like, clothing would change. Because, I mean, you could wear the normal gloves that you have now, but again, your thumbs are going to be shorter fingers. So your gloves are not going to fit super duper well.
Then all gloves would be fingerless.
That's true.
If we're thinking about dexterity, it's a good point about clothes because, like, certain clothes, like for people who have limb differences or whatever, like certain styles of clothes are harder to put on or take off because, like, you don't have the dexterity. So it would change clothes.
It's true. Possibly for the better.
Potentially, yeah.
Because who likes buttoning the buttons on your sleeves? Like, what a terrible design.
Like on like a dress shirt?
Like, yeah.
Mm.
I mean, I can do it, but like, I hate it. That's my shirt rant.
Yeah, well, I mean,
day.
I don't like the buttons on the sleeves. I mean, I've never unbuttoned them, ever. Like, I will just button them, and then they will be buttoned for the rest of the life of that shirt. So,
do you never roll your sleeves up?
No, I guess I don't. I never thought about that before, but I guess I don't.
Because that's when I unbutton them is when I go to roll them up because like you can't like
roll
it
yeah.
up when it's
yeah.
like, buttoned.
I typically wear short sleeve shirts unless I am dressed up specifically. And
Yeah.
I would have them rolled down. I'm pretty sure this is a myth, but there is a story about the origin of having buttons on cuffs of coats. Was allegedly because Napoleon wanted to discourage his soldiers from wiping their nose with their uniforms. I'm pretty sure that's not true, but I've heard it before.
And the button like hurts your nose, so that's why you don't.
It makes it like uncomfortable to
just use the other side of the coat.
Well, I said it probably wasn't true, but it's like one of those like I don't know, old wives' tales or something.
Sure. Yeah.
It'd be a little bit harder to blow your nose, too, I think, with all thumbs. Because, like...
You'd have to use your sleeves.
Yeah. But they would build that into.
Right.
That's how clothing would be different.
Yeah. I'm just thinking because, like, I don't know, I blow my nose in a weird way, but, like, the way that I kind of cup my fingers around my nose, I feel like if I only had the 2 joints in my fingers, then it wouldn't be very good.
You wouldn't be able to like do the pinching motion. It would just be like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. The pressure would be gone.
Right. Yeah. Although your finger,
not in your sinuses.
I should say your thumbs have a larger surface area on the front, technically. So maybe that would change the way. I should try to get a. Can you? No, I can't do it with just like sticking my 2 thumbs together. You'd have to have all thumbs to really experience it.
This has been a roller coaster of conclusions we've come to. Now you do have to be all thumbs.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's necessary.
We're going to bribe someone.
For science.
Yeah.
All right. Listeners, let us know if you are all thumbs. But in the meantime, we have a second question this week, which comes to us from Addison. Why are men far more likely than women to be colorblind? And I didn't say it already. We have decided that this is going to be a mini question.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't mean that we're not going to talk about it for an hour. It just means it does have a finite, simple, straightforward answer.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. And the answer is effectively that color blindness is on. Hold on. I better back up here because not all types of color blindness, but by far the most common type of color blindness, which is the red-green color blindness, that is found on the X chromosome.
Oh.
Now, if you've got 2 X chromosomes, then you are sitting pretty. You don't have to worry about it because you've got a backup. So theoretically, like you can end up with 2 of this red-green color blindness gene, and it would, if you had two X chromosomes that were faulty like that, then you'd have the color blindness regardless. But here's the kicker. Here's where they get you. If you only have 1 X chromosome because you got an XY pairing, then if you have the defective gene, then you are guaranteed to be red-green colorblind because you don't have a backup copy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when you buy 2 VHSs and you set one of them down on top of the MRI and it wipes it. Now you've got the spare, but if you only have the one copy of Forrest Gump from 1994 on VHS.
Because everyone's buying VHSs.
What are these references? You've only got 1 copy of Forrest Gump.
Yeah, on VHS.
On VHS.
And a spare MRI machine in the room.
Where it's like the Titanic when I was younger. It was such a long movie. It had 2 VHS tapes, so it really.
Oh,
sucked
right.
If you wiped one of them, because then you would only have half the movie.
I think I had a copy of Sound of Music that was like that.
Probably, yeah.
That movie was too long.
I feel like the last time I watched The Sound of Music, I did like it quite a bit, but I cannot remember like 2/3 of the story. So
well,
that's why you liked it.
It's the anniversary of the movie. It's coming up soon. I heard a whole story about it this morning, and people in Salzburg, Austria, they get a lot of tourists.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
But I did want to point out, though, that there are a couple other different kinds of color blindness. The other one that is very obviously genetically linked is on chromosome 7. And I believe, if I read this correctly, that it is dominant. So if you have a copy of it, then you're going to so red-green color blindness would be recessive. So if you have a working copy, the non-working copy doesn't kick in. But blue-yellow color blindness on chromosome 7, I think, is dominant. So you're going to get that if you have the faulty gene.
That's interesting because that's also a rarer form of color blindness.
Yeah, it's substantially rarer. Yeah.
But also what's interesting about colorblindness is it's different severities. So even if you inherit the red-green on the X chromosome type of colorblindness, like you might not be, quote unquote, as colorblind as someone else who inherited a different severity, if you will, of the colorblindness. So I think that's also something that people don't realize about colorblindness is that I think people think it's you have it or you don't. And there's actually a lot of nuance to it, which I found super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the test, because if it was all the same, you could, the color blindness test is those like little dots and you have to read the number and the dots. And if it was all the same level of severity, you really only would need to look at one picture to determine if you have it.
Right. One of them, I can't remember which one it is because I have not done the color blindness test in a very long time, but there's one that's like, depending on the severity and like which iteration of color blindness you have, you can either see a 2, a 1, or a 7. And I find that very interesting.
It's a smart test is what that is.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out, I guess, not that this is pretty basic genetics, but I wanted to at least mention it. Based on Jim's comment of if you have 2 X chromosomes, you're sitting pretty, unless both of those X chromosomes have the color blindness associated with them. It's also worth pointing out that if you do have one recessive color blindness gene, you are a carrier. So you could still potentially pass that on to a child.
So I am most certainly a carrier. My father was red-green colorblind, and I am not colorblind, which means my mother did not give me a carrier gene. So I am almost certainly. I mean, he never got like formally colorblind tested, but it was red and yet green that he had issues with. So I'm pretty sure that was the type of colorblindness he had.
I think it's kind of neat that it has become something that we actually not only just test for, but now like we're trying to design things that are colorblind friendly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like a lot of video games now have like colorblind modes that you can switch to that will change sort of the palette of the game. A lot of board games now are designed out of the gate to be colorblind friendly. They try not to do as many overlapping reds and greens to make it easier for people who have red-green colorblindness to be able to see what the cards say, or maybe not what the cards say, but like the card art, and being able to differentiate between different kinds of tiles and pieces and stuff. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting too. I never really like looked up images of what, obviously again it's a spectrum, but of what different color blindness, like what the color spectrum looks like. And it's a lot of gold and like brown blue mixture. And I just thought that, like, to my eyes, where I do usually see all the other colors, I just thought that that was, I don't know, that's not how I imagined it in my head until I was researching things for this.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid and we were learning, I don't know why this is such a vivid memory for me, but I remember learning how to read a traffic light.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did we have to learn the colors, we also had to remember that green is on the bottom and red is on the top.
Yeah.
And I remember having it explained to me because I was like, why do we need to remember that? And I remember it being explained because some people can't tell the difference between those two colors.
Right. Well, and then there is technically another type of color blindness too. You can have acquired color blindness. So this is less common, but things like various chemicals that affect your nervous system, like our solvents and things like that, heavy exposure to those, as well as like certain medications, and then certain conditions like Alzheimer's or multiple sclerosis. Sometimes a side effect of those disorders or those exposures can be, the cones and the rods in your eyes start to be affected. And so then you start to develop developed color blindness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Most people, as they get older, their eyes will get weaker, both for, the rest of the vision, but also your sense of color will dull.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. Our eyes are, for how good they tend to be, like if you have good vision, or even like vision that you can correct with like glasses, they are very sensitive pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
They're important. They do a lot of stuff.
They do a lot of things.
So definitely go to your eye doctor's appointment. Make sure you have healthy eyes. And if you don't have healthy eyes, get someone to help you out there because they're important. You want to take care of them.
Yeah.
I feel called out now.
Yeah, don't stare into the sun.
Don't stare
into solar eclipses.
I don't know if I told this story
Don't stare into active fusion reactors. Sorry, go ahead.
We're not supposed to do that?
No, as far as I understand it.
I feel like at some point I probably have told this story on this show, but I don't remember. When I was a kid, it was a dumb trend to shine flashlights directly into your eyes. Kids are dumb. That's just always gonna be the case. I remember having a flashlight shined in one of my eyes, and after it was done, I remember having a headache, obviously, and then out of my one eye, everything looked like it was in black and white. And when I would like open both eyes, everything looked really like blurry and extra headache inducing. But I specifically remember it looking like a black and white movie. And fortunately that ended. And that has always been kind of interesting to me, that like I always picture color blindness as something that I can't really exactly understand, because even if you look at a picture that is simulating it, you still know that is a third middle color. And I remember thinking it was really weird that I have this really clear memory of looking at just the world around me as if it was just in black and white, and that's not really what we hear about with color blindness.
Well, yeah, because it's the total loss of color for humans is super, super rare. So you're right. It's not something that's talked about. So I'm glad that your color vision came back.
I am too.
Really damage your eyes.
Yep.
The other thing I was thinking of, though, is just the fact that with the technology of today, we can actually simulate color blindness by using things like VR and eventually I imagine smart glasses. So if you are not colorblind, I think it would be interesting to see, like, because you had mentioned earlier, Sydney, about like, looking at pictures and stuff, but like a VR headset could actually give you the experience, just to kind of see what it feels like and how it's different. And I think that's important because then you can sort of understand what other people go through.
Sure, but I also, to Derek's point, where like if you're born colorblind, you always have that perception of the world. So like me, as someone who's not colorblind, I know what the other colors look like. So yes, I can understand a little bit better the other person's perspective, but I still am coming in with my fuller color spectrum.
Right.
So like I'm never going to truly understand. It's like bugs and stuff. Like they have and birds too. Like they can see UV.
Yeah,
they can see in that spectrum, and so like we can simulate that, but we don't really get that experience, so we can't really fully understand what that is.
You know what that reminds me of? There is a I think it's Tommy Edison. He's a YouTuber who talks about being blind.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember him talking about, somebody said, what is a seeing concept that you like really don't understand? And a thing that he brought up was the idea of transparency. Or translucence. I don't remember the difference. But the idea he brought up of a window, and people say they can look through the window and see what's outside, what's like across the street, because to him, he could put his hand up against the window and it is just as impenetrable as a wall.
Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating, because if I were to go blind, I would still remember what seeing through a window is like.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who's never had vision or never had colors to begin with, or all colors to begin with, like I can't ever really understand that because I've already had that experience in my life.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, we have one more question for you this week. Question 3 is, if animals had their own Olympics, what events do you think they would excel at? I have an important follow-up question to this.
Okay.
Does every animal have their own individual Olympics, or is it just all animals? All animals in the Olympics.
I also was wondering about this, and I took it a step further.
Okay, all right.
Because I was wondering, because, obviously, if we include every animal in the animal kingdom, we have a variety of sizes. So are we looking at their abilities to do things based on their relative size, or are we looking at them compared to each other? Because, a flea can jump like 350 times its body length, but its body length is really, really short.
Yeah.
So, like, a kangaroo is always going to be able to jump higher because a kangaroo is bigger to begin with. But compared to like its size, the flea should win.
So then we got to talk about like adding weight classes, but then also additionally to weight classes, we have to talk about like aquatic breathing classes and classes based on how many limbs you have. I don't know, like so yeah, and then I just kind of made a decision on this one. I decided humans don't get to participate.
Yeah, I thought that was fair since we have our own actual Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, now I'm thinking there should be like the insect Olympics and like the land mammal Olympics. Or it doesn't even have to be land mammals. It could be just like land animals.
Yeah.
You could throw in
just like birds together, reptiles together. Like we gotta have sub areas somehow.
Right. Because I wrote down that birds would be very good at any like jumping event. So like the long jump, the high jump, birds are just going to cheat and fly away.
No, you can't fly. You can't fly. You gotta jump. You gotta jump.
Okay. Well, then they'd be terrible at it.
The first thing that came up when I asked this to a couple people, the first thing inevitably that came up with people would be like, cheetahs would have the sprints down, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody mentioned, I forget what it is, but it's a kind of falcon that its flight speed is actually the fastest.
The peregrine falcon.
The peregrine falcon.
That's right.
Yeah, because they like do this like diving thing. It's crazy. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
And so the suggestion was that bird would actually be faster than a cheetah, and I was like, not in a foot race.
Correct.
So yeah.
But again, if we're doing the relative thing, so like again, going back to my jumping example, are we doing like highest jump overall? Because then it's probably going to be something like true jumping, not flying, probably something like a kangaroo, which can jump like 10 feet in the air without any effort.
Mm-hmm.
But again, a flea, which is very small, can jump, I don't know how high, but very, very high. And
Yeah.
it's like 350 times how long it is.
Mm-hmm.
So in my book, the flea wins.
Right.
Yeah, I think 'cause Jim's saying there should be an insect Olympics and a bird Olympics. Maybe that was Sydney who said that. I don't remember. I immediately thought what bird would win in a foot race, and then I realized probably the ostrich.
Or like a roadrunner, they run pretty fast.
I think the roadrunner may be faster than an ostrich. I don't remember specifically, but then like the ostrich is a flightless bird, so it
True.
would lose in the flying competitions.
But also, like, people are that way too. Like, your
True.
swimmers aren't going to be winning medals in Olympics. Like, you know, people specialize in their events,
Mhm.
and their bodies lend them to that way, whether because they train them to be that way, whether because they have genetic predispositions to certain traits and qualities that make them better at certain events versus others. So I think it would be the same if we did like a bird Olympics. Like, certain birds are going to do better in running, certain birds are going to do better in swimming events or diving events or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
categories we create.
Oh, diving events for birds. I didn't think of that. That'd be fun.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's a cool idea. I spent a lot of time thinking about swimming.
Okay.
And I did learn something really interesting. That the black marlin is apparently the fastest fish, which I think is kind of interesting. But I also feel like there should be there's also the aspect of who is training these animals and are they sentient?
Well,
Because I was thinking like all these different kinds of fish could like train themselves to be better and faster and stronger. Or alternatively, like a human is doing this. I don't know. But because other animals might be like if you have the fastest like swordfish versus, or maybe not swordfish is a good, like the fastest great white shark versus the slowest black marlin, you know, who's going to win that race? I don't know. But training is important, and humans have to train and train and train. And like you said, they have to specialize.
Right.
Because the folks that are doing speed skating are not also the same folks that are doing the high jump. So
Right.
it's not even the same Olympics at all, man.
I was thinking that I didn't really consider who was organizing the Olympics until you brought that up. And I just realized that what I was inherently picturing was like a children's book or cartoon scenario where the animals just all got together one day and decided we're going to compete. And it's basically Tortoise and the Hare, but amped up to an extreme level.
Yeah, that is a really interesting component that I also hadn't thought about. Like, are we training these animals or are they just doing it themselves? Because if we're training them,
That's
it
very
really
different.
Well, yeah, I was like, is it really the animals at that point, or is it still a convoluted human Olympics where it's like you know, like horse racing and like horse events in the Olympics? Like, obviously there's a lot of human skill that goes into those events, the equestrian events in the Olympics. They're a human event, but even though they use horses, but like there's a human element to it.
Right. And then if the humans are designing the events, it becomes kind of like animal breeding a little bit. And
like
in
a
addition,
of types.
like a circus of types, right? And then they're going to come up with, there's going to be some victory condition that is taking into account the fact that the animal doesn't care about it. So like if we had sentient cheetahs and they decided we're going to have a foot race and one of us is going to win, that's one thing. But if it's humans have, like, look at like dog racing, for example, there has to be some kind of fake rabbit that all the dogs are chasing to get them to all go in that direction, because they don't actually care who crosses the finish line first.
Oh, is that how that works? I've never watched dog racing.
I'm pretty sure. I only know about it from The Simpsons. I've never watched an actual dog race before, but it's some incentivized thing. Yeah. And I guess to the dogs, in the dog's mind, it's the first person who gets the animal or the first dog that gets the animal is the winner, but they're not really thinking about winning.
Right.
And they don't care who placed second or third.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, in these animal Olympics, we could have animal-specific categories. So instead of doing like the things that the humans do, they could compete with the things that animals are really good at. So like we could have like who can find the flower the fastest, like which insect's gonna find the blossomed rose first, or like
scavenger hunts and stuff.
Yeah, like here's fresh dead meat. What scavenger finds it first, or what creature can pretend to be another creature better than the other ones.
I actually kind of came up with a few of those because I was thinking something we don't have as humans. We don't have like a lot of climbing stuff. So like tree climbing.
Mm-hmm.
Like squirrels would be good at that. We
Yeah.
don't have anything involving digging, and a lot of animals are really good at burrowing really quickly.
Yeah.
What's another one I came up with here? There could be a whole thing about building structures that are like spiders and silkworms and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's one that I really like is a bunch of animals that compete in some kind of obstacle course using echolocation.
Oh, that's a cool one.
Yeah. So like there could be non-human events.
Yeah. I like that one. The other one that actually what Sydney said made me think of this, and I'm thinking of some kind of bee triathlon kind of thing where you have looking for the flowers, coming back to the hive and doing the bee dance to tell where the bees were to go, and then retrieving that like the correct amount of honey, or I should say nectar or pollen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the triathlon. Find the flowers, do the bee dance, retrieve all the honey or
retrieve the
pollen.
correct amount. If you get too much, you're disqualified. If you don't get enough, you don't cross. There's that like
well, just today somebody got
zone.
disqualified for being like 100 grams too heavy for whatever event this was.
Yeah, I mean that's weight class events they're strict. You have to meet them.
So your bees can't be too heavy.
I was thinking that has like relay elements to it too.
Yeah.
And you have to like put your best competitor in the category they're going to be the best at. And I remember years ago, I don't know if it was on Discovery or Sci-Fi or Animal Planet. I feel like it was because I didn't have cable when I was a kid. So I actually feel like it was on a local channel. I don't know. It feels like an Animal Planet thing, but I remember that they had like man versus animal as like a whole thing. And I remember that a runner, and I think he was an Olympian runner, raced a zebra.
Huh.
And then someone had to do tug of war with an orangutan. And those were the two I remembered, but there was like a whole series of events that they put together, and pretty much hands down, the animals always won.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was on purpose. Like they were trying to show like, we're spotlighting what the animals are good at, basically.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So according to Google and Wikipedia, the show was Man vs. Beast, and it was a series of sensationalistic television specials aired in the United States by the Fox Television Network in 2003.
Of course, it was Fox. Yeah, I remember they were dumb, but I like animals, so I enjoy watching animals.
I do think it's interesting to consider that humans are also substantially better at endurance running. So over a sprint distance, the zebra or the horse or the centaur or whatever is going to win. But
centaurs don't get to win.
Over a very long distance, like if you're doing a marathon, then the human's going to win. And I think that's kind of interesting in and of itself.
Well, I thought that was interesting, even if we keep humans out of it, because if these are sentient animals, if these animals have organized their own training, we're making like a bedknobs and broomsticks soccer game is what we're putting together.
I keep going back to the Laugh Olympics, the Hanna-Barbera, with
that
Yogi Bear
too.
and whatnot.
So a cheetah is famously the fastest land animal, but cheetahs don't 100% of the time catch their prey because they aren't good at maneuvering. They're good at sprinting straight.
Gotcha.
So So their competitors would be things like wolves or like caribou, maybe not caribou, but like things that can run great distances but won't necessarily be fast. And then their actual prey in real life, gazelle and antelopes, which most of the time avoid them by zigzagging. So like maybe that wouldn't help them so much in a race, but the point is like strategy could factor into it. And it would be interesting to see these animals discussing, okay, you know, that cheetah's really, really fast. How are we going to take them down?
Right.
And then you could have a Dick Dastardly involved as well.
Yeah. So like a cheetah probably wouldn't do well at like a hurdles type of race.
Right.
Yeah.
I was also thinking about things that are not necessarily the animal's forte, but things that we kind of associate with those animals. So, like kangaroo boxing. Like, I don't know who started that, but I just imagine like that could be an interesting event, having the kangaroos boxing.
But then again, are they boxing other kangaroos or are they boxing like
in my head, they're boxing
bears?
Other kangaroos, yeah.
Gotcha.
I got bears, okay, yeah. I could, let's see who wins in a fight between a kangaroo and a bear. I could get behind that.
I feel like the bear would just get frustrated and wouldn't box. It would just like swipe and like rip the head off. Like it would just kind of like do a bear claw and rip the kangaroo down.
Well, that's the animal kingdom is mixed martial arts is what that is.
Right.
That's only one event.
Yeah.
In the Olympics. They also wouldn't have we've separated things into like animal types, which is interesting because like we in the human Olympics have representatives from different nations.
Right.
And you just couldn't do that unless you counted zoos, which I feel like that would be extra cruel. So I don't want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So is each I don't know what word to use. Cause mammal is not specific enough. But each like type of animal is kind of like representing the birds in this event.
Mm-hmm.
But are they bird exclusive events?
Yeah. I think they have to be. I think that's the conclusion we've come to is that you have to do like insect specific events and you have to do like mammal specific events and potentially even more specific than that. Cause like, you know, is a mouse going to go up against a black bear? They're both mammals.
That's true.
But you might have to even get into like, you know, family specifics or something like that.
Yeah. And then like if you think about even birds, ostriches and penguins would not fit in with like peregrine falcons. So
right.
What if you kept it to like a region or a nationality, but then you had every category, like there was the bird category, and then you had to pick like what animals are native to different regions to represent. And then, so that's a way that it could be done maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you go with that idea, it is again reintroducing the humans into the element because the animals don't know what country they're in. They're just roaming the ground. They're just flying through the air. You know, they don't know the political borders that we as humans have established. So if we start adding in those regional elements, we're again implementing humans into this animal Olympics.
I just kind of thought it was interesting to think like what Northern American animal would be able to compete with what African animal on like say a strength competition or something like that.
Moose. The
moose. Oh, that's
the humble moose.
I don't even know what it's going up against or what it's doing, but that's just the correct answer.
Could do like what are they called when they like move like trucks and tires and stuff with like
I don't
know what that event's called. I don't even know if that's an Olympic event, but it's definitely a sporting event where they like do like the body pull.
Yeah. I thought it was just tire lifting.
But I think moose would be good at that.
Probably. Moose versus elephant. Elephant would probably win.
Yeah,
probably.
And they're pretty strong too.
It's interesting how the amount of megafauna per continent is totally different.
Yeah. Well, they have the environment for it.
Yeah. I think it'd be interesting to see all the different sort of genre of horse. So like you have your zebra and you have your horse and There's got to be more than just those two, right?
I
Donkeys,
mean, there's different
mules.
types of horse within horse, like
Yeah.
you know,
Ponies.
like Appaloosa and something like that, and you have like your Clydesdales, and like you got your Wild Horse and your Broncos, and I don't know if these are all accurate. I'm not a horse person, but like you got different types of horse. You got the little wild horse in Mongolia. They're like the last wild horses.
Oh yeah. Like all the different horse flavors, and just have them go and see which one wins.
Well, then interestingly, like all of those are actually also pachyderms. A lot of people don't think of them as pachyderms because they just think of elephants as pachyderms, but like technically they are. And
like
then
a
you
donkey
got
would be too, then, right?
donkeys and hippos and rhinos.
Oh yeah, so if you have all pachyderms competing, that's very different than just all horses.
I think tapirs are related to elephants, right?
I wouldn't be surprised.
I feel like I read that whales are more closely related to things like hippos than like lions or what have you.
Oh, I could see that. They have kind of the blubbery.
Yeah.
Why would the whale be more related to the lion?
It's not. That's what I'm saying. It's more related to like a hippo. I don't know. It's just trying to throw out another animal. But like, as I understand it, hippos and whales are not like tremendously distantly related, which is kind of weird to think about.
Well, I think it's weird to think about that like ants are closer to bees than like hornets are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that is weird.
Because we think of them as like very similar.
Well, yeah, we create categories and they aren't always accurate.
What?
I know. I read a very interesting book on exactly this topic that's called Why Fish Don't Exist or something like that. It was
That's a pretty popular one, yeah.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, the whole taxonomic clades. So that's based on how you measure it. Humans are lizards, I think.
Okay.
I heard that one before, but okay.
Maybe it's not lizards, but because every clade that is more distant in the past, like every animal is part of every clade above it. So like you can go back really far and I mean, this is also like, it is human made up, but it's also in the same way that like, it's not as arbitrary as a lot of people like to argue, in the same way that like, I'll go back to Pluto again. People who think we should just make Pluto a planet just 'cause. And like, we could do that, but then the whole system we've come up with would then be arbitrary.
Yeah. Because the thing that a lot of people, I think, neglect is cladistics and like figuring out what clades things are in is not so much about like the sort of the modern world. It's more about evolutionary history and which things have like branched off from which other things. So taxonomy and cladistics are like two very different, not very different, but like they're different enough that they have like discrete use cases.
Yeah. They serve a different purpose.
Yeah.
We got to get Allie back in here to talk about birds and dinosaurs.
Yeah. Because birds evolved from dinosaurs. That's my favorite. I love that. You know what else is my favorite?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
What I was going to say is the next thing on my list, which is horse judo.
Wait, what?
Horse.
So my connection totally cut out for all of that. And all I came back to was the next thing I was going to say is horse judo.
Yeah.
I don't think we said anything in between then.
There wasn't really much in between there and here, yeah.
I'm about as lost as you are.
All right, then please explain to me horse judo.
I was just thinking horses are really good kickers and like they could, I mean, maybe kickboxing. Judo might be the wrong choice for this, but kickboxing of some sort where you have like your horses and your donkeys that are really good at kicking at things that are behind them. And they could just, go for the TKO. I think that's what you do in that kind of martial art, right?
Does it matter that they're doing it backwards? Like, is it a requirement that they have to look in the eyes of the thing that they're kicking?
They have to look them in the eye when they're doing the kicking.
Yeah, as they fall.
Yeah.
I think I could get more behind something like where they have to kick over some inanimate object.
I was just thinking whoever makes the rules, they could definitely just say, you don't have to look at the thing you're kicking. Just cross your fingers and hope for the best.
In this event, kicking wildly.
Yeah.
Gold medalist.
Oh, jeez.
So, like many of the questions we've tackled on this show, I really think this boils down to there are too many follow-up questions that need to be nailed down to give a better answer.
Yeah, I agree. I think the concept is there. The idea needs to be cultivated a little bit, and I think we need weigh-in from the greater community beyond just the three of us to figure out the best way to pursue Animal Olympics.
I'm in favor of giving them the choice and being like, what do you want to do, animals?
Yeah. I think you have to do that because otherwise the animals are just going to get mad at you and then they'll just attack you.
Yeah.
And they'll do the horse judo at you.
And honestly, that's only one event, and we don't want them to focus on that too much.
That's true.
The killing humans event.
Oh my.
Hippos are good at that.
That's true. They're one of the better ones.
It is actually, kind of terrifying.
All right, listeners, let us know this week if we had all thumb Olympics, what events would we excel at?
I assume the thumb war.
The thumb war, the texting, the video games. We've already answered this. Anyway, if you have any thoughts that we didn't touch on about that or anything else we've talked about on this show, let us know. And you can do that by sending us an email at feedback@vaguelyscientific.com, or you can comment on our blog at vaguelyscientific.com, or you can like us on Facebook at Facebook. Something. I don't know. I tried to do a thing. Anyway, you could also tweet at vaguelysci. Yeah, those are the options I know about. Hey, Jim, where do we get all these wacky questions?
We get them from you, the listener. And if you have a question that needs to be answered in a vaguely scientific manner, please email us at questions@vaguelyscientific.com. If you want to get our episodes the minute that they're released, you can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and all the other great places that cool podcasts like to hang out. And subscribing and leaving feedback really helps us out, and so does telling your friends.
Tell all your friends, especially if they are competing in the Animal Olympics.
Or the real ones. Like, that'd be cool.
Real ones.
I want one of them cool Olympic people to listen to our show.
Some of them might.
That's true. I don't know them all, or any of them.
There's a lot of Olympians in the world.
That's true. Yeah. Our vaguely musical intro is composed by Anthony Pizzelli. And don't forget to check out our merch store over at vaguelyscientific.threadless.com. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can get. There's the mugs and the t-shirts and the non-t-shirts that are long-sleeved. I think those might just be called long-sleeve t-shirts now. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like we've wrapped around as a culture. But they're there. You can get them.
You could also get other things that wrap around.
Yeah. Like
a shawl.
Do they have shawls?
No, we have towels, I think.
We do have towels. That we
what
do
about
have.
Blankets?
We have like fleece blankets.
We do
I remember those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's many things you can get. Go check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And thanks to Sydney for being our guest this week.
Sure thing. Thanks for hosting me, guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For Vaguely Scientific, I am Derek.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Sydney.
Yay! Vaguely Scientific is part of your complete breakfast.
Toodaloo, everyone.
Okay, cool.
I just imagine someone sitting down to like their breakfast, and instead of reading a newspaper, because they don't make newspapers anymore, they just put on podcasts.
But, hold on, Jim. They do still make newspapers.
I mean, sure, somebody does out there, but...
Not many, though. Not many. Like, physical print newspapers, hard to come by.
They still exist. They're out there.